Hello, this is Angela Anderson. Thanks for joining me today. We are going to be painting this really pretty painting of a cloudy sky with a lone tree on a hillside. Very simple composition, but I think it'll have some good techniques for blending and that kind of thing. And if you've ever wanted to know how to paint clouds, hopefully this will be the painting for you. So let's get started. Okay, so this is my example painting here that I did earlier this week, and this is the photograph that I took it from. The original was kind of black and white background with the green tree, and I added a little bit of colored filter just to kind of jazz it up a little bit, make it a little bit more colorful. So I'll go over my paint colors here with you. I've got Zinc White, Carbon Black, unbleached, or burnt Umber, burnt Sienna, Quinacridone Magenta, Hansa Yellow medium, or you could use Cadmium Yellow medium if you want. This is Yellow Oxide, Phthalo Green Yellow shade, and Phthalo Blue Green shade, and Titanium White, and I've got out some of my acrylic glazing liquid, the satin golden acrylic glazing liquid. That will give us a little bit more transparency to our colors when we can glaze and mix them a little bit easier and give us a little bit extended drying time as well. So I've got my pre-primed canvas panel here. This is a MDF canvas panel, or it's not a canvas panel actually, it's just an MDF panel that's got gesso on it. And it should be pre-gessoed. Most of these canvases that you're getting will come pre-gessoed. If it says primed or gessoed, you shouldn't have to do anything to them unless they're really, really cheap quality and you're finding that the paint's not sticking to them well, then you can gesso. But I get questions about gessoing the canvases a lot, and I never do. I just go straight from canvas to put paint on. Let me do a little quick sketch with you. I already kind of pre-sketched a little bit, but I'll go over it with my watercolor pencil here. I've got a gray watercolor pencil, and you need to zoom in a little bit, hun, oh, this got moved. There we go. Okay. Sorry. So I'm going to start out at the bottom here, a little bit maybe over about 1.5 inches maybe up. If you were to divide it in half and divide it in half again, we're below the below a quarter mark. So, and then the top of the hill is right at the quarter mark. So if that helps you kind of guide, it always helps me to have sort of reference points. I'm just going to do kind of a slightly diagonal line, and this one's going to kind of disappear as it goes off this way. And then right about in here, we're going to do our curved line up for this hillside, and then it'll gently curve down here. So it'll go up to that quarter mark here. And then there's another split right here where it kind of has a far hill there. I hope you can see that okay. I know it's kind of light with the pencil here, but our tree's going to go right about here. It'll be right almost at the third mark. If you kind of split your canvas into thirds, it's going to be right off to the side of the third, but it'll hit right in that sweet spot that we want it to hit in. It's our little focal point here, and it's going to be a really flat bottom that kind of angles slightly to follow the line of the hillside there, and it's going to round up and back in, and then do another little rounded shape and back in, and then have another little rounded section at the top. Can they see that?
Yeah.
Okay, you can see it. I'm not drawing it too darkly because I don't want it to show up too heavily under my paint colors. Right. I'll re-sketch this later if I need to. So, but right now, and then there's a couple splits here and here at the bottom of the tree. Okay, then our main cloud is going to be right here, and it's going to come off from the bottom of the tree and kind of angle up in and go up like this, well, it's actually going to angle in like this. And then...
The tree's a little light. You want me to zoom in on the
Yeah,
on the
zoom
tree?
in on this
Okay.
part. Make it easier to see. Okay. Yeah, the tree, I made it light because it's going to be in the background. We're gonna cover over, but I did want to draw it in so that I know where to put this cloud here. So we're going to angle up a little bit and in, and then angle this way. There's a section of cloud that kind of comes up and around. Honestly, this does not matter too much. You can use the photograph as a reference to kind of see where I'm talking about. Go ahead and pop the reference up there, honey, for them.
What am I doing?
The reference photo.
Oh. Yes.
And then there is another section there. That's kind of the top of this cloud. This is the only really like hard formal cloud that we're going to have, formal cloud shape that we're going to have. The rest of it is very kind of misty and blended clouds. So it's going to be a good one, I think, because it'll show you two different ways of doing clouds. And I also had somebody asking me beforehand, if this was a good beginner lesson. And I would say the tree for sure. The tree in the hillside is super, super easy. This cloud is the hardest part. The rest of the clouds are a lot easier. So if you wanted to just do a simpler cloud for this part, I definitely think that it's a beginner level, project. If you wanted to try the cloud, see how it goes. You can always cover over it. That's the nice thing about acrylics. If it really goes wrong and you just hate it, you can just, put some extra paint over there and some simpler clouds and call it good. Never hurts to try something new and challenge yourself. So don't feel like you can't do this if you're just a beginner. It's always good to kind of try new things. And definitely the blending part is going to be good. So there's a little kind of cloud peeking out over here. And then from this cloud right here, there's like this little section that kind of sticks out right here. There's like a kind of a meandering line of cloud shape that sort of this is very I actually kind of blended it out all the way in this part on my example one, but I think I'm gonna try to make it a little bit more noticeable on here. So I'm going to draw it in, and then there's kind of this cloud thing that happens. It kind of cuts off that corner there. And then there's this huge cloud bank over here that's really, I love this little colors and everything about this cloud because looks very menacing. We're going to get storms today too, so it's probably appropriate. And it's got these little pockets of light kind of poking through here and some birds hanging out up here too. So we'll be putting those in later. This will be the last thing we put in. This will just kind of help. I don't normally, like when I did my painting, I did not sketch out the cloud. But this might help, just to kind of get a general idea of where to put these, just so you don't have a big blank space to work with. And there's some wiggly cloud here. Okay, so that's kind of our general, we weren't zoomed out for this part, hon. Or any of this, probably. They missed all of that. Sorry, guys.
I think I might be fired.
Yeah, Mark's getting the look right now. He just got the look. You don't want to see it.
So that's why you don't have a face cam.
Yeah. Yeah. Did I even mention you? I don't think I mentioned you when I came back. I got my husband Mark here with me, help, quote unquote.
I'm not going to take blame for the beginning.
Okay.
And the people who see this in the future won't even see the beginning. So
that's true. They won't even know.
Only those who are here for the live. So that's why you need to be here. So you can see all the excitement.
All the fun mistakes we make. All right. I would rather not have any mistakes myself, but that's all right. Okay, so I'm adding a little bit of gray here to my white. I'm going to go ahead and start putting in my clouds. I'm gonna add a little bit of gray and a little bit of my Phthalo Blue. And when I say a little bit, look how little I'm using, and that's probably too much. Teeny, 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 tiny bit is gonna really make a big, you need to zoom out farther, honey. You needs to be able to see the palette. There. Okay. And then a little bit of burnt sienna. Burnt sienna and Phthalo Blue make this really kind of lovely greenish gray color. I'll just dull out that blue a little bit, make it a little bit more grayed. That'll be a good color. Okay, so that'll be kind of our base for the first part of our clouds, and I'm just going to use, actually I don't know that this brush is probably way too big. I'm probably going to switch to a smaller brush here. Got my large 1-inch flat, but I'll put in a little bit of this. Just tap it in here and into some of my darker areas to start with. All right, I'm going to switch to my filbert here. This is the number 6 filbert in the Princeton brushes. I'm going to grab some white, and I'm just going to go in around this and soften up the edges a little bit with a little bit of white. It's mixing with that blue that's already in my brush, so it's just going to give us some little softness around the edges to start with. And we're going to add way more details, so don't worry about how this looks. This is going to look worse before it looks better. Clouds always do. There's something about doing clouds that they just do look like really weird at first, and that's normal. So just trust the process. I'll work, we'll work our way through this and add lots of layers to help get these looking the way we want them to. But these first few layers are going to look really weird. And here I'm adding a little bit of black, and then I'm just going to wipe off. Every now and then I'm just going to wipe off my brush and go back in while that paint's wet and smush it around and just kind of go along those edges where I want it to blend into the other colors. And you got to do this while they're wet, so just do small sections. And don't worry about how each brush stroke looks at this point. You just kind of, all you're doing is making sure you're getting your values right and getting it fairly blended if you can. So grab a little bit of white here, and that's starting to dry, so I'm just going to kind of add a little bit of extra paint here. And keep on going. Sorry, I was starting to think about something else there for a second. What I was doing. All right, I'm going to grab some yellow oxide now and blend that into my white mixture that I've got going on. It's going to blend with a little bit with that blue-gray color too. I'm going to start using that in here for some of these lighter areas and just touch in little pockets of light color. So we're going to go back and forth between light and dark to fill in our sky here. The more work we do, the more carefully we lay in this color now, the less work we're going to have to do later to change our values. So we just want to get our values, and when I say values, I just mean light and dark colors. I'm going right over my tree here. I'm not even going to worry about it being there. I'm going to do this blue right along that horizon line and blend it up. If you're finding that your paint's starting to dry, just work on a different section and come back to it. Even if it's not blended yet right properly or it looks weird, just let it set. Don't mess with your paints while they're drying. Acrylics do not like that. They will make you pay if you if you start messing with them while they're drying. They will start lifting off your canvas and you'll have a bigger mess than you had intended. So I used burnt umber this time. I'm just going to use different hues of different shades of gray in this painting here. So, say I had, I don't know what that was. you know, if I had something over here that was not blended and was starting to dry and got started, you can tell if it's starting to dry because it gets sticky. The paint will start feeling like sludge and it'll just won't want to move at all. It'll start sticking to your brush and everything else around it. And it'll lift right off your canvas if you keep messing with it. So I'll have some white and go right here over the edges. Here again, I'm going to go right back over my edge, these dark, hard edges with a little bit of light color, and that'll help blend them out a little bit. And grab some yellow and some white. And I'm going to use that yellow and white around the outside here. It's going to turn a little bit of green. That's okay. Going to add that in around. It might be a little bit dark, but that's okay. We can add a little bit more light color later. How are we doing on chat today, hon? Probably got a smaller group because this is our Patreon bonus video. So thanks, guys, who are watching. We really appreciate you, and we're so glad to have you join us for these bonus live shows. It's fun. It's kind of like a family event. Got that smaller, intimate group of folks.
Yes, I can follow along with chat much easier.
Nice. Not going a mile a minute. If you've got any questions during the show that you want to ask, you can just put those in all caps and Mark will pass those along to me. Guess no questions means so far so good.
Oh, I'm supposed to be paying attention to questions? Oh, man. Okay. I'll try to do that.
Okay. That's all right. All right, I'm going to go in here and start laying in some of the dark areas on this cloud. They've got these dark areas back here. I'm going to stay away from these lighter areas and just kind of focus on where I'm seeing these dark pockets of color. And sort of just go in and lay some of that in. Go up next to where the light color is going to be, but not over the top of it. So this area is going to be dark in the middle here.
We got Miss Patricia in chat today.
Hi, Patricia. How are you doing?
And we got Gail.
Nice.
Oh, man, I think I wrote down how to say her name. Saselski.
Nice. Good job.
Thanks. I wrote it down right here on my piece of paper so I could remember.
I gave my mom the secret link yesterday. She called me and she said Dad said he didn't want to have to pay for it. So that's okay. Thanks, Dad. I appreciate it. Appreciate the support. But they do like watching, which is great.
Yeah, we'll remember that.
I guess for family, there should be a family discount. I guess, that's all right. I understand.
Well, I don't pay for it, so.
That's true, exactly. See, so. Just thought that was funny. So I ratted Dad out. Sorry, Dad. All right, so I'm going back in now with some white added to this color. I haven't been even talking about what I'm painting here, sorry. And I'm just going in and blending through those areas. Why don't you zoom in a little bit on that, just that cloud there, and so you can see a little bit better what we're doing. There, that's good. Okay. And then there's a little bit at the top there too. Now, I don't have my background color in yet, so this is really not I'm not going to do my defining stuff yet. This is going to look pretty rough at first, so don't worry too much about how it looks at this point. We're just going to getting our values in there, kind of drawing in with paint where we're putting stuff. And let me grab some more of this blue. There's going to be some more of this dark blue down here.
We have a question.
Okay. I'm going to grab a little bit more of my burnt umber here and mix that in with the blue. Go ahead.
Cassandra wants to know,
Yes.
why are you not using a stippler brush?
For this first part, I'm not going to, and then I'll switch to one. So for laying in the major colors, blocking, I don't really need the stippler yet because I'm not worried about the texture at this point. I'm just worried about the values. So once I start getting into the details and wanting to softly blend out all of this, I'll go to a stippler. But for now, I'm just laying it in with the brush so that I can get these values in and in a faster manner, because it'll take longer with the stippler. So I don't need to. It'll just take longer. That's the short answer right there. Okay. Okay. Yeah, you can zoom out now. There. Good. That's fine.
There's a second delay.
Yeah, I know. So this is my Phthalo Blue with a little bit of burnt umber added to it. I'm going to add a little bit of this really dark color right in here too. And right in here. Just going to tap it in there. We'll blend that out later. Okay, let's add some of this color up in the corner. This corner's got a lot of green in it. And then I'm going to grab some yellow and some white. Put my palette where you can see it. And I'm going to tap off with yellow and and I'm saying yellow, it's the yellow oxide. At this point, I'm not going to use the bright yellow except for maybe a little bit in the sky, but mostly in the grass. So, all right, I'm going to clean that out. Need to get it nice and clean. And then we're going to use the white and a little bit of Quinacridone Magenta. And when I say little, I mean a teeny, teeny, tiny bit. It really will tint it quite dark very quickly. And then I'm going to grab some of my yellow oxide, and that'll just tone that down, give it more of an orangey feel, softer coral pink color. That's what we're looking for. Kind of like that. So that's going to be this cloud here. And actually, that's a good color for down in here too. We'll just go ahead and do that, and then we'll do this one darker. So I'm going to use this blush pink up in here for most of this sky. Go right up to this cloud here.
Another question.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody wants to know if there's another name for yellow oxide.
Yellow ochre is similar to it. It's kind of the same color in a little slightly different formula. So I think yellow ochre might be a little bit more brown, I want to say, but or yellow. I don't know. One is a little bit more yellow. One's a little bit more brown leaning. I like the oxide because it's I don't know. It's just what I tend to grab for. So I've liked it better than the ochre, but it doesn't really matter. They're both very, very similar. So if you have one, you don't need both, is what I'm saying. You don't have to go out and buy yellow ochre. It can be substituted for yellow oxide. Or if you've got yellow ochre, don't go out and buy yellow oxide. Okay, I got yellow, I've got the yellow oxide here. Just adding a little bit more to my paint. Grab a little bit more white. Soften that up. These transitions are going to look really bad right now. They're going to be really hard and really ugly. So that's normal. Don't feel like you get to this point and it's like, look how ugly. We're definitely in the ugly stage here. We will work through it, but sometimes it's hard to see the end in the middle, you know, when you're in the middle of a painting like this and you're kind of like, oh, I'm doing something wrong. And I get a lot of people sending me pictures of their paintings that are in the middle of process. And, you know, I just say, keep on going. It'll get there. You just kind of have to keep trusting the process and working through it. I'm adding a little bit of the blue that was my light blue from over here and transitioning these two clouds here. Just a little bit, just softly tapping over that edge. Grab a little bit more of the dark and work some of that dark into that transition too. Using a filbert will help too with your clouds because it's got a soft rounded edge already, so it'll give you a little bit softer blends. Even if you see brush strokes, they won't look as harsh as maybe a square brush would. So it's a good tip for doing clouds is you start out with a filbert. You could do the whole painting with this filbert, really. I think it would work just fine if you didn't have a stippler at all. And especially if you had a filbert that was a little bit scruffy around the edges, it would really do well. And actually, that's what I used for most of my blending. That's saying that. This is a old brush that I've had for years and years and years, and it's gotten all fuzzy, and I ended up using it for my clouds, and I liked it so well I used it for my tree, and so it ended up doing my whole painting with it. Now, it'll be similar to a Deerfoot Stippler, but it's a little bit smaller, a little bit more control with it. So if you've got an old brush that you've kind of ruined, don't ever throw it out. A lot of times they work great for things like this. All right, so I'm going to grab some of my burnt sienna now. And I still have all these light colors on my brush here. These are the... There we go. I'm going to add some of that right here in the middle. Not using a lot, and I'm adding a lot of white to it so that it softens it up a little bit. I don't want it to be too brownish. Grab some white. Work that in to those edges while they're wet. Now this is dried already, so I'm able to go right over the top of it and not worry about it lifting. I'm going to go right over the top of some of this cloud here, add a little bit of this color into this cloud. Help blend it out. And then this cloud over here is going to be kind of a combination of the burnt sienna and that gray blue color, but adding a little bit more of the burnt sienna, so it's a little bit more of a rust color. And I'm just going to kind of doing these kind of light circular brush strokes here just to kind of along those edges to soften them up a bit. Add some of this color down here. We want some of that burnt umber down there. Grab a little bit more of the burnt umber. Go a little bit darker with it. Right there. Add some white. Some yellow oxide. And go along that edge with the yellow oxide and white. And blend it in. I'm kind of doing a diagonal. If the photograph has this kind of a, I don't know, it looks like it's kind of sweeping in from the side, so I just kind of using that angle. Now if I've got too much paint on my brush at this point, I'm going to wipe it off And I can go back in here and grab some of that white light pink color. That's this color. Blend down back over this transition line to soften those two up. Lots of little tapping brush strokes, not very firm pressure, just sort of lightly brushing over these areas. Lots of small brush strokes instead of long firm brush strokes. That's what you want to do with your blending. It's the lighter touch is better with your blending, I find. Otherwise, you're just going to be pushing the paint around and it's not going to blend, it's just going to lift. So just kind of having a light touch helps a lot. I'm bringing this coral color over here onto this side a little bit, bring it all the way down. Okay, we've got our clouds pretty much set here. So we've got our background colors in play. Using a little bit lighter color around this. All right, we're done. There we go. No, I'm joking. Joking.
I will say earlier when you were sketching it out, you'd say, okay, now you got to go to this mark here. And every time you said mark, I'd look up. What? Because obviously I was paying so attention to what you were saying.
What I was saying. That never happens. That's okay. I know that. It's okay. I don't take it personally anymore. Okay, so there's a couple ways of doing the clouds over here. I'll show you some of the options that you've got, and you could kind of just experiment a little bit and see which one works best for you. I would say the best technique is the one that works for you. So there's not a really right and wrong way of doing these clouds. There's just the way that works for you. So one option is to use the textures that we've got here and to take your glazing medium and to alter the colors by adding glazes and then maybe a mop brush or something like that. I've got a hair in there. A mop brush, where's my mop? Right here. Like this, and using that along the edges to sort of fluff those edges while they're wet. You can even fluff inside. I've seen this done a lot. It takes a little bit of finesse. I don't particularly think it's the easiest way of working, but I think it gives really beautiful results. So, so you lay down, pretty heavy color in a small area, and then you can dampen your mop brush a little bit to kind of help it move the paint around. And I've got glazing medium in here with my black. This is just black mixed with my blue, dark blue that I've been having going on, and I'm just tapping through and sort of fluffing these clouds out, sort of doing these little circular fluffing motions. Sorry, I don't know why I'm holding these brushes like this. They're ready. They're on the alert. I've got them in standby here. They're like, do we need to go in? I don't know. Like, they're like the pitch hitters. They're standing off the side, kind of warming up. They're like doing their swings and everything, like baseball players. Okay, so I'm liking how that's looking. It's actually really pretty. And I did most of these really fluffy clouds this way. I did these clouds a little bit differently. So, because these are a little bit of harder line clouds. They have a firmer edge to them. Oh, I just picked up the paint with my mop brush, and that works too. I don't find that they're as easy to actually paint with. It's easier to lay down the paint with a firmer brush. And
okay, we got a question or two here.
Yes.
When you're ready.
Go ahead.
All right. First question is, does an artist develop an eye to pick out the colors over time? Because, you're pointing out different colors that people may not see in the
Right.
picture. I know in the past you've done some oddball colors. You think, well, blue doesn't go in that painting, but yeah, sure enough, it did. So how do you just develop that eye to see that, or?
I think so. Yeah, I think that the more you paint, the more you will be familiar with the colors that you like to work with. And a lot of artists have a particular palette that they go to and that they use, because they know how to manipulate them, and they know this one dried before I could blend it out. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to add a little bit of water to this and just kind of come back in along the outside edges of it and add a little fresh paint. And then I can blend it out a little bit. And I may add a little bit of water to my mop brush to make it softer. And that will soften those edges a little bit and allow you to blend them out a little bit. But yeah, I mean, I've got certain colors that I just go to, and I know how they look, and I know how they work. And so I tend to use them. But as far as like seeing colors in an object or in a photograph, that does come with your drawing experience. So the more that you draw and learn to discern shapes, colors also kind of come along with that. Really drawing is one of the best things that you can do for, you can paint without drawing. Don't get me wrong. It's a totally different skill set, but drawing will help you with other parts of your artistic journey for sure. And it will make you start seeing things a little bit differently if you... I went in with my paint there. I'll wipe off my brush and go back in. I can also go in with glazing medium. So if I want to, make it even more transparent, I can blend back in with some glazing medium. As well. But yeah, that just kind of comes with experience. I think, a little bit of it. Some people have a knack for seeing colors. I've got one of my students in my kids class. She's been taking lessons from me for several years, and she just, has a natural ability to see colors and blend colors, which, she's developed over time. And, so I don't know what my point was there, but I'm thinking and trying to paint here at the same time. That's so hard to do. Thinking and painting, talking and thinking and painting too. That's a really... Okay, so you see how this is working, and it's already kind of starting to look, like clouds, I think. At least it is to me. Let me grab a little bit of... Now I'll show you what it looks like with the stippler. So I'm going to add just a tiny bit of water to it just to soften it up slightly. I'm going to grab a little bit of Phthalo Blue, and I need to cut it, but I want it to be a little bit less gray than, a little bit more vibrant than these colors. So I'm just going to add a little bit of this yellow oxide color to it instead of the burnt sienna. The yellow oxide will just kind of green it, dull it a little bit. I'll wipe most of it off. So when I'm using the Deerfoot, oh, I'm just getting that other paint on it, sorry. When I'm using the Deerfoot, I really only load the very tip of it, and it is like 90% dry. There's very, very little paint on that brush. It's just a dusting at the very tip. And I'm going to go in here, and this is the dry brush option. So this was the glazing option with the mop, and this is the dry brush option. So we're going to dry brush. Make sure your background is dry. If it's not dry, you're going to just lift your color. because it'll scrub right off. So this is the other option for doing these clouds. And I did both, you know, so I kind of go back and forth and see what's working and, you know, decide, oh, I think I want, you know, a little bit of softness around the edges. This gives a little, I think, a little bit softer blend, but it takes a little bit more time. It's a little bit more, I don't know, it's just a little bit more fussy in some ways than the glaze, but both options work really well. It's harder to switch between colors with this because once your stippler gets some paint in it, you really don't want to clean it out because once it gets really saturated wet, it doesn't work as well. So I saved this for some of the colors that I know I want, you know, to be super soft, like this blue here. And I am going next to these colors that these edges that are a little bit wet, and it is lifting a little bit, but it's doing okay, I think. So, all right, so I'm gonna clean this out. You'll see what I mean. It'll get a little bit softer. You can let it dry out completely, or use another one if you have another Deerfoot. Just kind of get it as dry as you can. And then I'm going to grab some of this white with yellow oxide color that's up in here, and I'm going to tap in a little bit thicker paint this time. So this is not dry brushing. This one is actual kind of stippling. So these are two different techniques that you can do with this one. And this is another way that you can do your clouds. You can just stipple them, and that's what we'll be doing with this one down here. We'll be doing mostly stippling, a little bit of blending, but mostly we'll just be stippling on colors in layers. Okay, see, so I just added a little bit of white down and back in there, and there's a little bit of white peeking through right here too. So I'm just going in. This is where I want, you know, if I want a brighter, more bold color change, this is where I'm going to be grabbing this and using a little bit thicker amount of paint on here and just tapping it in. But I don't want it to look like clouds because this is actually just the sky brush color kind of peeking through the clouds. So the edges here, I'm kind of softening those up by sort of scrubbing those out. So I don't want it to look like a little white fluffy cloud here because that's not what I'm going for. It's not a cloud, it's just sunlight kind of peeking through our cloud shape. And let's grab some more of this blue, maybe a little bit of our gray.
Somebody wants to know, is your Deerfoot Stippler a softer brush?
No, it's the stiff bristled one. Yeah. I don't find that the soft bristled Deerfoots work for me. I just don't like them at all. So it's kind of like what's the point? You might as well just get a soft brush. It's not going to stipple for you if it's too soft. All right, that's looking pretty good. I'll probably change the tone of it. I'm going to let it dry, though, before I do anything else to that. And I'm going to work down here. I'll grab a little bit of black and mix that with my blue that I had going on, this blue. And I'm going to use it and just going to touch the tip of it down here. Wipe it off. Got a little bit heavy paint there. I don't want it that thick. There we go. I'm just going to soften that up while it's wet. Is it zoomed in enough for you to be able to see? We can zoom in a little bit more if we need to. If everybody's happy with it, we'll just leave it. I'm going to grab some burnt sienna now. Tap that in, wipe most of it off. And we're going to do some burnt sienna in this corner here. It's a little bit of brown. over here. Almost looks like a tornado. I don't want it to look like a tornado. It's a little bit softer than that in the picture, so I'm going to got a little bit of my brown, my black mixture, I mean. A little bit of that in there. It's very subtle. It's actually really fun. And you could do any kind of set of colors on here that you wanted to. You know, if you wanted to tint them a little bit more, you know, in your pinks or those kind of colors, you could use those. As long as you do this dark and light thing here, you can really play with the colors quite a bit. All right, got most of that off there. Grab some more of that light color. And we're going to go back in and soften up the edges with the light color. Stipple and blend around these a little bit. Go back over. I can also start introducing some of my Zinc White at this point. So once I'm kind of saving the Zinc White until I want to blend over some of these other darker colors. And it'll really do a good job of softening the transition between your light and dark colors. So a little bit more white, or a little bit more water here. Now these clouds are going to take the majority of the time. The tree is going to take no time at all. It was very, very short. But I feel like spending extra time on these clouds really makes, they're the star of the show, I think, in this painting. So we want to give them a lot of attention, make them as pretty as we can. So I'm going to use this white now. And if I want to tint it, I can use a little bit of my yellow oxide or something like that, but for now, I think I'm good with just the white. It's gonna soften some of these colors a little bit, change the values a little bit. How are you doing, hon?
I'm doing okay.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay.
You got this on your own? I'll be right back.
You'll be right back. Okay, go for it. Well, you really were leaving me. I didn't think you were. I thought you were joking. Okay, so now we can talk about him while he's gone. All right, so I'm going to continue using the Zinc White, and you see how that just softens those edges really nicely. Not going over the dark areas. I'm just kind of working on these areas where it transitions from the really, really dark to the really light, and it just does a really good job of making these clouds look wispy. And I'm using this stippler in a kind of a circular motion. And even where it's really bright color, since it's a transparent color, it's going to have a softness to it, even at its full strength. It's not going to be as harsh as a bright, like a titanium white. If we were to do this with titanium white, it would not have nearly the same effectiveness. Now, you can use titanium white with your glazing medium or with some water, but you know, if you have Zinc White, I would definitely use it. And you don't need a big bottle of it, because I don't use it for that many, you know, things, but it's definitely a small little tube of it goes a long way, and it's really effective for things like this. We used it in the starfish, I think, this week too, and also in the tulips that I just uploaded from our bonus video a couple months ago. And if you haven't tried that painting yet, I would suggest that was, I think, the people that painted that, I was really impressed with how successful they were with the glass, especially. It turned out really nice, really lovely. Grabbing a little bit of yellow oxide now. I'm going to add a little bit of that along these edges. We were talking about you the whole time.
I just stand over here because they can hear me on your mic real well too. So.
Oh, they can hear you even when you're.
Well, I mean, over there they can hear me a little bit, but right here for sure.
Yeah, right
with
here.
your new fancy mic.
I know. Now I don't have to be taped down to my chair, which is nice.
Do you need help with the painting?
You could try.
I mean,
you want to do some?
What am I doing? What am I doing? I haven't been watching. Go ahead. Oh, this is happening, people.
Oh, are you gonna do it? All right, all right. Do some of this white along the edge here of this cloud, and just soften up the edge.
The whole...
Tap. Yeah, tap a little bit of that color.
Okay, here we go.
Tap some on to
Over
that
here?
one too. Sure.
Like that.
Mm-hmm.
All the way down.
Mm-hmm. Lift it every now and then too. To like tap and lift. Yeah.
Oh, like that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Good job.
Good job, everybody.
It's amazing. I actually really enjoy. Mark's laughing, but I actually really enjoy seeing a student like Mark or anybody doing these lessons live, because I can see things that I neglected to say. So, like lift your brush up. I'm lifting it. It's probably not obvious that I'm lifting it, but I am lifting it a little bit. So I'm not just kind of doing like this and
I was kind of rubbing it around.
Right, he was rubbing it around, but you're actually like lifting it and gently brushing, short, choppy brush strokes. Makes a difference. Good job, honey. See? What?
Somebody's worried that somebody may have just tuned in right at that point, and that your arms suddenly got hairy.
Like what happened, Andrew?
The winter growth.
I have let him go a little bit. Not gonna lie. My chin too, so. Grab the yellow oxide mixture for that little bit there. Just soften that cloud up a little bit. And we'll add a little bit of that up in here too. So just adding a little bit of soft fluffiness to these clouds and those edges there. Okay, so they're already looking pretty good, I think. Mark's cracking himself up over there. Giggling.
I'm listening to it on delay.
Oh. I actually got to, because I was editing the tulip painting yesterday, and I was cracking up with some of the things we were saying to each other. I love that there's evidence now of these silly conversations that we have. Okay, grabbing some of that blue, this blue that was up in here. I'm just going to add a little bit of that to this one too. And just creating some kind of layers to this cloud. Lighter on top. This is our light source right in here. So the clouds closest to it, facing it, are going to be lighter. And then they're going to darken as they go underneath or away from it. Add some of that there. Yeah, I can't remember. Oh yeah, you couldn't talk. You couldn't chat on that show because your chat wasn't working. So I was asking if you'd been bad, and we had a whole conversation about that. It's pretty funny. I don't know why. I just thought that. Okay, so a little bit more of this. This is the burnt sienna kind of mixture with the light colors, and add a little bit of this up in here. This has actually got a bridge that happens over here a little bit. And there's some green up in this area too, so I'm going to grab a little bit of the Phthalo Green and mix that with that blue. A little bit of the white, yellow oxide. There we go. Just going to make this kind of a light green color. Tap that off. And we'll add a little bit of this green. That's pretty. Probably not a good sign that clouds are green around here. It is a tornado-ish.
Yeah, I think that is the hail.
Turns it green? Really?
I think that's what I've heard. Hashtag storm facts.
Yep. Adding some white here. Gonna go along the edge with the white to transition.
I think those are called farmall clouds.
And I knew we were going to get comments about the tractors, and you know we did. He's talking about the tractor video that we did a couple weeks ago. We had a debate during the whole show about what kind of tractor it was. At the very end, we said, I think we finally figured out, or Gail finally figured out the right tractor for us. I did, one of the first comments I got was, that's a tractor. Whatever kind it was, I don't even remember. Not a farmall. I was like, he obviously didn't make it to the end before he gave up on us. He missed the point of the discussion where we actually figured that out, but I told him thank you. Yeah. Like, you knew that was going to happen.
And I liked your dramatic reading of the comment there.
The runt.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of how it was to me. That's how I heard it. It was kind of like that wah, 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 wah.
That's how an artist hears it. Huh?
That's right. Yeah, exactly. That's how important it was to me. Sadly, I really probably should know more about, hey, if it's pretty, I'll paint it. That's all I care about. I don't care about the details. I just care about the aesthetics of it. Okay, so I'm going to grab a little bit of white with my brush here. Brush out most of it. And maybe a teeny tiny bit of that pink that we had. Just want it a little bit rosier, and we're going to do kind of a rosy halo right here. And it's really turning out to be more white than pink. That's okay. And I'm going to go right over the top of that cloud to make it look like it's kind of disappearing a little bit against that light color. Same thing over here. And I really want to blend this out a little bit more too. Okay, see, we're already almost there with this background stuff. It's almost not too hard. Just be patient with it. That's the main thing. I think with clouds, or really any of this painting stuff, is it can be frustrating not to see progress, because it does take time, and some of these paintings will take you hours, and taking longer than I take is normal. You know, if you think about, you know, I've painted, if you're just starting to paint, goodness, give yourself a break. You're gonna, you know, it's gonna take you a little bit of time. That's normal. And I remember being frustrated with my first, you know, paintings and wanting them to look a certain way and not having them turn out the way I wanted to, and going back and trying to fix it and reworking certain areas over and over again. That's completely normal when you're a beginner. Don't feel like you can't paint just because it doesn't come super easy to you. And nothing really in life that's worth pursuing does come easy, I think, you know. You gotta work at it, and just because it's, you know, a challenge doesn't mean that you're not going to be able to do it eventually. You just need to practice, and have a little guidance will help with that too. And that's my job, hopefully, is to kind of make it a little bit easier for you when you're learning, to kind of avoid the problems that I found. But if you're, well, the folks that are watching are not new to my channel, obviously, but for those who are watching the replay, if you're new to my channel, hope you will enjoy today's video and subscribe. So I want to be sure I don't neglect saying hi to the folks that are going to be watching in the future. That's like rule number one. Good etiquette when you're visiting somebody else's channel. You want to say hi to them. Like coming into my home and ignoring them. Okay, I'm going to add a little bit more blue here just to kind of define this little area here a little bit better. Added a little bit of gray under here just to kind of tone down that light color, but I'm liking that. Okay, so let's start working on this puppy here. And I'll probably add, I'm going to grab the Zinc White for this part and maybe add a little bit of the yellow oxide to it. And I'm just going to add a little bit of detail to this area down here that's sort of our horizon storm clouds. Just soften those up a little bit. Grab a little bit of burnt umber. Mix that in, those blues. Stipple in some details. There's a really dark area right back here, so I'm going to grab the blue and black. Do a nice dark right there, really dark. Don't be afraid of contrast. That's what gives your paintings the dynamic look. We're just going to transition between these two colors as best we can. So we don't have like a black line back here, but I'm just, as the paint's running out of my brush, I'm just continuing to kind of lightly brush it in, and it's going to blend and soften, start to dry brush. It'll transition between stippling and dry brushing right there. There we go. Ooh, that's very dramatic. Add a little bit of this really dark over here too. A little bit black, a little bit of blue. Blend those together. There we go. We're going to put some really black clouds up in here. Look at your reference photo, see where those darkest areas are, and we're just going to tap in very lightly, lifting my brush as I'm tapping and sort of sweeping in this circular motion so that it's sort of scrubbing the paint in, not doing little circles. If you tap straight up and down, you're going to get kind of fluffy circles, but we're kind of more going for the dry brush look here. So we're just kind of scrubbing lightly. You don't have to go over this whole entire area back here, but this area is pretty dark, most of it. So do you want some dark areas back there? Oops.
Oops, what?
Well, I was down too low. Thanks for letting me know.
Somebody should be paying attention to that stuff.
That's all right.
We should hire somebody just to watch you paint.
Yeah. Okay, I think that's good. I'm probably going to soften that up, and I'm going to let that dry for now, and we'll work on this cloud here because he needs some attention. So I'm going to switch over. I could continue with my stippler, but I'm going to switch over to the filbert here because I found like it really worked well for me. And I'm going to start out by, we're going to transition with a medium value color. So I'm just going to use a little bit of white and grab a little bit of this blue that we've mixed up before. That's kind of our base color here. And that'll be sort of the main color for our cloud here. And I'm going to sort of go over that transition between those two colors and get a little bit darker value here. So I'm going to grab some of that black, gray, the gray blue that I've been using up here. Mix that with that lighter blue. Oh, I hope you can see that. So I've grabbed a little bit of that gray and just mixed it with a little bit of that lighter blue. And yeah, we'll use that. There we go. So I'm going to tap in some fresh gray, blend it off, grab some of my lighter color, tap it in the opposite direction, and blend those two together while they're wet. There we go. Zoom in a little bit so they can see this. Good, right there. Okay. So dark gray going along that gray line there that we had already in there. I'm going to come down a little bit right here. Come down a little bit farther than I think I need to for this cloud. And then I'm just going to wipe most of it off and blend out a little bit out on the outskirts here too. Okay, then I'm going to grab some of my lighter blue. That's my base color. Maybe wipe most of it off, and I'm going to blend over that transition between those two colors. Just try to pick up some of that dark gray that I just laid down and kind of blend those two together. Okay, grabbing a little bit more of the light color. This is more like almost pure white here. I'm going to go on top of that again. Now this time a little bit farther up, so each time I'm adding a little bit more light color. Losing my voice. Grab a little bit of white there, blend that in. Really bright white here. And this is where I'm just going to lightly tap, kind of change the direction that I'm do a couple circles this direction, a couple circles the opposite direction. It'll kind of help keep it from looking to the same, because if you were to do circles all in the same direction all the way down, you'd get these kind of rolling looking clouds. So I'm going to do some in one direction, then change direction and do some blending in the opposite direction. That'll help them from looking like a pattern. Grab a little bit more of the really bright white here, and I'm just going to lightly tap along that top edge. See how that brush is like the perfect amount of fuzziness there. It's just perfect. And it's a Taklon brush, so it's a softer fiber brush. It's not super stiff, so it'll allow you to kind of get some of these softer blends, almost like a mop would. And I'm going to go right up into these other clouds here and kind of, oops, thank you. Put a little bit along those bottom edges of those clouds too. This area is actually kind of more of a middle value color here. It got kind of dark all the way along, but it's not really accurate. Grab a little bit more white. It's going to take a couple layers of this light color to kind of really get as bright as you want it on these top edges. So I'm going to need a couple of times to add light colors in there, and I don't necessarily want it the same value of darkness all the way along here like a line, so I'm going to grab some of my sort of medium color. Grab some blue. And go in with a kind of a different color there to kind of add a little bit of different. Break it up a little bit. Let's do the same thing over here. There'll only be a couple of pockets where this really, really dark color is visible. The rest of it's going to be kind of shades of grays and blues, and I'm really adding a little bit more blue than my photograph even had. Okay. Keep on working down here. Now, see, it's starting to get there. Starting to make sense. Really bright right there. And then we need to work on this transition right here. So we're going to grab that. Make some more of this dark gray color. Blue, black. It's way darker than we need it, but we're going to make a little extra of it. And I'm going to let it down so it doesn't dry out on me as quickly. It's just drying out too quickly. Add some white to it to soften it up. Pretty blue-gray color. I'm getting it as close to that color as I can, and I'm going to lay in a little bit of that color. Grab some white. Blend that out. Go over it. Right on top. Just above it, not covering it completely, but just one layer above it. And this needs to come down a little bit right here, I noticed. Okay. Let me add a little bit of this color up in here because I'm not seeing it up there. Help unify our cloud. Then I'm going to grab some of the lighter white. Blend that off. And go back over just one layer above that. Lightly tapping different directions, circles. Right. Looking good. I love it when we get to this stage where it's like starts to actually look like something. It's the magic. And you can do this too. Don't think you can't. It just takes a little bit of practice. Don't let it suck you out. Clouds, for some reason, are one of those things that a lot of people have mental blocks about. We all have different things that we feel like we go into a painting and think, I can't do this. And that can be really difficult to overcome because we, especially things like trees and clouds, are one of the most common things that people have issues with because they have preconceived notions of. If it's something that you drew in kindergarten, a lot of times you're going to have trouble painting it later in life because you have a preconceived notion of how it should look that was developed when you were a child. And those notions are not, completely accurate. They're often really creative and beautiful, and a lot of artists make their careers out of creating art that's imaginative and create based off of their own, kind of imaginary versions of what things should look like. But if you're looking for realism, it can be really frustrating because those preconceived notions of what things are supposed to look like will trip you up and make it harder for you to actually paint something the way it actually looks, because your brain is going to fight you the whole time saying that's not what a cloud looks like. A cloud looks like this. and your brain's going to be getting in the way of the process. So,
well, now I'm sad. Because I'll never be able to paint a spaceship or a tank ever. Because that's what I drew in kindergarten.
and you obviously know how it's supposed to look. So, yeah. Sorry, hon. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to ruin your day. It's not that you can't. It just makes it a little bit more difficult, more challenging. You just have to learn to trust the process. That's the only reason I brought it up, is because that's where, using tutorials will help you overcome some of those kind of blocks, because you can just do the steps exactly the way I'm doing it and trust me to get you through it. You don't have to trust your own eyes. Just trust in the process, trust in the way that I'm teaching you and the different steps that I teach you to take. And hopefully if you do it, fairly similar to the way I'm doing it, you'll get there. You'll get, to a result that you like a little bit, maybe. Okay, I'm going to grab some yellow now. Getting down toward the bottom here, so I'm going to start transitioning my color. Sorry, a little burp there. Okay. All right, so I'm adding some of the yellow, and this is the Hansa yellow, to that blue. Wiping that off, and I'm going to use a little bit of that along those edges to create this kind of sunlit tone. I'm just changing the hue a little bit. We're not really adding any opaque color here. We're just kind of adding a little bit of bright sunny yellow to it, just to make it a little bit more cheerful. Like maybe this cloud's not going to take down my house. And if that's happened to you, I'm sorry. It's not funny. That's scary around the south where we live. It's a real possibility. Okay. There we go. Looking pretty. Grab some of this and I'm going to put it up in here too, on these clouds. Any of these edges that I think might be poking through and getting and catching a little bit of sunlight. All right. Oh, there's a blip there. What happened?
I don't know. Wasn't paying attention.
Okay, I'm going to grab some of my darker color now. That's that dark color that I mixed up before. I'm going to use it down here. Maybe use a little bit over here too. Oh. A bit there. Grab my medium blue. It's got a little bit of gray in it. That's good. Most of this part is going to be covered up by the tree, but I do want to make sure we have a good blend there. Got a little bit of gray here, just using a little bit of that. Grab a little bit more of the black. There. Grab some white, mix that with my blues. come through here and just kind of do a little outline on this cloud a little bit. There, a little bit here. All right, we are almost done. We'll use a little bit over here.
Okay, timestamp done.
30 minutes and counting. I swear, if we do that again and it is accurate, this is gonna be interesting. Okay, go ahead and zoom out for me, hon. Okay, so now we've got a really cool looking cloud head there. Yeah, I'm liking that. I think I want to add a little bit of gray to this side of it. It's a little bit more gray in my picture. And I've got it. I'll grab some zinc white in my black. Just make it kind of a transparent gray out of those two colors. Be a little bit softer than. There we go. I'll grab some zinc white here and just use a little bit of that zinc white over the top of that to soften it up. Soften that whole area. All it's going to be doing is really adding like a layer of mist over the top of your painting. You'll still be able to see everything underneath. It's just going to slightly fog up and soften those colors. It's really effective for these clouds. All right, and I think I need to use it up here in these, but I'm going to switch to a little bit bigger brush to do that and use that zinc white. Maybe a little bit of gray with it. Mix a little bit of black in with it. I'm just going to use that over the top of these gray clouds here, just to soften them up a little bit. I kind of got a little happy with the dark, so I just want to make them a little bit softer, push them back a little bit into the background, make them not so in your face. You can see the difference between there and there where I haven't done it and that where I have. It's a very subtle change. And I can go a little thicker in some areas if I want it a little bit brighter than others. Actually, I want it dark right through there though. Add a little bit of blue to this too. Just give it a little bit of blue. There we go. Just softening that up a little bit. All right. Okay, let me grab the very bright white now. I'm going to just tap in a little bit of that really bright white in here. it right in here. Ooh, now it's looking like sunlight poking through there. Let's add a little bit. Just with this brush, just a little bit on the top of some of these clouds here. Okay. All right, let's do the green hillside. Grab my, let me grab a flat here. Just got a Princeton Bright here, number 8. And I'm going to grab my Phthalo Green and a little bit of burnt sienna. This will just tone down that green. Actually, I'm going to make a dark green with burnt umber too. So I'm going to grab the burnt umber, make a really dark olive green here. I'm going to brush that on. Okay. Thank you.
See, I was paying attention for once.
Nice. Appreciate it. And then I'm going to make a lighter green. I should have done that first probably. With the yellow, Hansa yellow, and that Phthalo Green mixture. And add a little bit of water to my paint here. It's getting sticky. Go right along the top there with this color. It's going to take a couple coats to cover. Phthalo Green's a very transparent color, so if you want, you can add a little bit of white to your mixture. That'll help it cover better on this canvas. So I add a little bit of white here. There we go. Just try to get these long sweeping strokes if you can. That'll kind of help give it that vibrancy. And then I'm going to grab a little bit of that dark color here, and I'm going to go right along the edge and add dark right along that horizon line there and blend it up. There's another line right there too. Now at first it's not gonna make a whole lot of sense, these hills, but we'll define them better later. So this is our first layer. Just trying to kind of get it on smoothly if we can. Add a little bit of white. Right up to those clouds. There we go. I like using the edge of my brush when I'm doing these lines, these long lines. It gives me a little bit more control than if I was to use a smaller brush. Okay, there we go. Good enough. And the reason I didn't do this first, it's just because it's easier not to have to worry about the clouds covering over your hillside. But I could have painted that in at any time, really. Okay, so I'm going to grab a liner brush now and my black, mix a little bit of burnt umber with it. We do need to get that palette cam going. But then you're really going to have to pay attention. We're going to have somebody else paying attention to chat, because you won't be able to do
do palette
Palette
cam.
and chat.
Yeah, I've thought that a couple times myself, but I figure you're going to be asking too much from your help. Just more and more just keep piling on us.
I know. You're already having to control the camera.
I'm forming a union right now.
Are you?
There's so far one member.
I think Cinnamon's husband probably join you.
I'm just wondering where the palette cam gonna go. Is it gonna be like a upper window, or is it gonna be a switch back and forth thing?
Well, I kind of had an idea that you'd switch back and forth, but yeah, you could do it in the upper corner, maybe.
Okay, I need to start exercising my finger for clicking, click,
Click, click there.
and get a less clicky mouse.
Yeah, you do need a less clicky mouse. I already told you that for sure. That's my...
I have a less clicky keyboard today.
Okay. Good.
Have you noticed?
All right, so my tree is right about there. If this is my third mark here, and here, we're going just slightly to one side of that. So there's, come down onto the hill just a little bit. Go ahead and zoom in for this one. There, that's good. Okay. Come down off the hill just slightly. Go straight across here. And make sure this is vertical. The rest of the tree is going to be, you know, at angles, but you really want your tree trunk to be equal to the side here. So make sure you do that. Trees were our challenge this month in our Patreon group. Those of you who are a part of my Facebook Patreon group. So we did several different tree tutorials. Did palm trees, and last week we did a little cypress tree by the beach. For my Monday art chats, I do like little mini tutorials in that group. So, and then one of these is going to branch off this way. You're not going to see very much of this, so I'm not even going to be bothering to put in any of the branches in this particular tree. Usually I do. This one is so far away and so small that you're not seeing any of the branches, so don't even worry about it. It's all you're going to have to do. I'm going to grab a little bit of yellow oxide. And while it's wet, I'm just going to tap in a little bit of yellow oxide along our light highlight side there. Just to kind of give it a little color. All right, now I'm going to grab this brush again. You could use a Deerfoot Stippler if you want to, a smaller one, or any scruffy small brush that you like. Dry it out really well, and I'm going to use this dark color that we used on our hillside. So I'm going to grab some black and add it to my, actually this black and brown mixture, and add it to my green. We're going to start with this color that's almost black. So I'm going to grab a little bit. This is the tree trunk color, and I'm mixing it with the green just to get a really dark green. Okay. I'm going to brush off most of it, but then I'm going to go back in and I'm going to tap a couple of times into that wet paint so that I've got really wet paint on the tip of the brush here. And I'm just going to very, very lightly tap. And if your brush is scruffy enough like this one is, you're going to get this really lovely leafy texture out of it. So about like that, I think. This kind of comes up there. And I'm really only going to do the darkest parts with this color. So I'm actually going to grab a little bit of black because I want it even darker. Tap through the black here. There we go. Just because we're snoring over there. That dog. Dog snores. Okay, then there's like another section right here that's, grab that darker color. There we go. Just look at your picture and see where those little pockets of dark color are. and we're just tapping those in. I'm not going to do the light colors right now. Keep in mind the shape of my tree is going to be this kind of almost like a triangle shape. And this part is actually kind of going to curve down a little bit, so I'm going to bring that side down a little bit lower than this side is, so it angles down. And this side kind of comes up. There. That. And then there's a dark area right here that's kind of a V at the top of the tree. Okay, that's good. I'm going to clean that out really well. Wipe it dry. And then we'll do another color that's kind of the medium value. So I'm going to grab the Phthalo Green, add a little bit of that color to it, but mostly just Phthalo Green. Tap it out so that it fluffs out my brush. And we'll tap in a little bit of this Phthalo Green here. This color is not going to be, this is just kind of going over a couple areas, but it's not our main color on this tree. And I'm going to grab some Phthalo Green, or Phthalo Green. I said that again last week. Yellow Oxide. That's what I meant to say. Yellow Oxide. Tap that in. And we'll tap in a little bit of green with this color, just above where these other colors went. In some of our light areas. Just a little bit of that. Wipe that off. And then I want some of this green grass color that we're going to do down here. So I'm going to grab some of that green and some white and some yellow and really make a bright fuchsia apple green out of it. It's Phthalo Green and the Hansa yellow light, or Hansa yellow medium, I mean, and some white. So that's what this color is. So really bright appley green color. And we're going to tap that off. Ooh, that's pretty. And when you're doing the light colors, really go easy on those because those will be the least amount of paint that you use. Okay, I'm going to use that color and mix it with this dark color to kind of give myself a transition green. And use a little bit of that transition green to sort of transition between those two colors just slightly here and there. I'm trying to stay away from that dark area though. And I'm going to use a little bit of that to kind of add a little bit of color at the top here because it's kind of disappearing into my sky. So the top of my tree, wherever I want my really fuzzy areas to be, I'm going to add a little bit of this color. It's just the mixture between my darkest and lightest colors. Okay, we get a little bit more of that dark green. Tap back in a couple areas. And you don't want to overdo it. If you notice how little I'm actually touching my brush down, really very, very, very sparingly. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. You don't need especially with these kind of stippling techniques, you really want to go gently with them because you can overdo it really quickly. If you get in there and just tap, 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 you'll end up with a big solid blob of color without any of this interesting variation in color and all that. So okay, I think we're done. Let me zoom out. I'm going to need to work on the hillside a little bit more, but we are done with this part. Zoom out, hun.
Maybe.
Stop. There. Okay. All right, I'm going to grab this flat brush, the smaller flat, but I think it'll give me a little bit more control than the other one was giving me, and I'm going to mix up some more of this bright Hansa yellow, little bit of green, mostly yellow though, really want it bright, and a little bit of white to make it more opaque. And now that we've got these dark colors under here, we can just kind of drag some of this light color over the top. This brush is pretty stiff, so it's giving me kind of some texture, which I like. I'm just going to try to get it to look like sunlight's hitting right there. If you go down too far down here, don't worry about it. We'll put on some more of the darker color. I'm totally losing my voice right now. How long have we been going? 2 hours?
1 hour and 45 minutes or so.
Yeah. So that's true because we lost the first part.
Nobody knew that until now.
Well. Okay. I know.
You keep giving away the secrets.
Sorry. There we go. Okay, if I got too much there, which I did, I'm going to grab that, grab a little bit of the burnt umber color, and I'm just going to go back over, transition between those two colors while they're wet. Soften those up, soften up that line between those two colors. See how that blended out nicely. Just light brush strokes through that wet paint. And any streaks, as long as I'm brushing these in this direction, any streaks that I get like that are going to look like part of the grass. So that's deliberate. I'm not going in and doing my brush strokes this way because then if it would look differently. This grass is kind of this rolling hill feeling, and so I'm trying to get it all to kind of go in this direction. Now this is starting to dry, so it's getting sticky, so I can't mess with that anymore right now. I'm going to grab some of the burnt umber and my phthalo green with that dark color. I'm going to use that edge of my brush just to kind of firm up my line between these two hillsides a little bit better. Need a little bit more green, that's kind of dark. There we go. Wipe that off. Going with my really dark color right here. I'm going to have a really dark area right in here. So I'm going to start where I want the color to be darkest and thickest. And then as I get up here, I'm just going to kind of continue to run my brush in that direction, and it'll run out of paint eventually. So I'll get these streaks happening. Grab some of my phthalo green there. Just transitioning between those two colors. This might be a little bit tricky. Just give it time. If it starts kind of getting too streaky on you or whatever, just let it dry and start over. Phthalo green you may need to add a little bit of white to it because it can tend to be transparent, so it can be hard to blend like this because it doesn't want to cover very well over other colors. So I added a little bit of white to it here and a little bit more of my yellow to the Phthalo Green. And I'm just gonna transition here. Come on off. Thank you. Got a little bit more white. My paint's getting a little sticky too. It might help if you started out with fresh paint for this part because it'll blend a little easier than mine is doing for me. Okay, I'm going to use that edge of my brush and really carefully line out that highlight right there. I think an angle brush might work good in this situation too, because you can get down into this corner here a little bit easier, especially for this little area right here. And if you're really worried about your clouds and getting a straight line, I would make sure that those clouds are dry. Make sure that your background's completely dry, and then you can tape this section off with a little bit of tape. That way you can work a little bit faster and you don't have to worry too much about, you know, the blending. Add a little bit of this darker color right there. There you go. Okay, I need the darker. I have a little bit of burnt sienna here with my Phthalo Green. And I'm going to go right up under my tree here, and I'm going to do a nice dark shadow right on this part of the hillside. Right under my tree. I'll wop my brush off and get a little bit more of that burnt sienna, a little bit more of the Phthalo Green. There we go. Get it nice and dark. This actually is going to be pretty dark all the way out this way. And there's a little bit of the lighter color right in here. And this dark color extends right here. It starts about right here. There we go. Get my yellow and white with the green. Very lightly touching here. Maybe a kind of medium color to transition between these two, so I'm going to mix them together. Use that to kind of transition between those two colors. A little bit of it over here too. A bit of it over here. Maybe not that. Maybe not that bright over there. Grab some of that darker color. Okay, we're almost done. I think this is about it here. You can kind of play with this a little bit if you want it. Want to grab a little bit more of my yellow and a little bit more of the white. Do a really bright yellow-white highlight. My last little highlight here. Take most of my color off there. Just dry brushing a little bit of really bright. Too much paint on my brush. I'll wipe that off. And blend out underneath. A little bit of that lighter green, that's the transition color. Blend that with it. There we go. And then a little bit of that really bright yellow right here. When I'm blending down, I'm not going all the way to this corner so that I don't lose my line there, because I want it to stay pretty dark right there. So I'm going to add a little bit of grass right here. And if you lose that corner edge, you can go back in with some burnt umber and green and just go put that back in really quick. Just lightly blend it out slightly if you need to. All right, I think we're about done. What do you think, honey? Did I miss anything?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Oh, the birds. I did miss something.
Oh yeah, other than the birds, I mean, no, nothing else.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna grab some black and wet down my paint quite a lot. I'm gonna use a very, very thin brush called a spotter. Zoom in. That's good. Okay, so the birds are up in this area here, and I'm going to, you need to wet down your paint so that it's very, very thin, like milky consistency. And pull it to a point with a very fine brush. If you don't have a brush this thin, you may want to, you could do this with a needle or even a toothpick, something like that. You really want them very, very, very fine. I'm just going to do some different kinds of birds here. Different, some of them more.
So what are the different birds there?
Well, I'm not saying they're different kinds. I'm just saying that they've got different configurations. Some of them are more like an M shape, and some of them are like this one, more like a V shape. So, and I'm going to kind of stack them.
So we have flying letters?
Yes.
Okay.
Just trying to keep them very small. If you make a mistake, if your background's dry, you can go through and wipe it off, immediately. Even a pen would work if you had a very, very fine pen. You could try that. So I think I'm going to do one more right down here and call that good. Okay, you can zoom out. And then I'm going to grab my pen here to mark. I've got a Pigma Sakura FB. And I think it's fine brush is the name. FB. A bit smaller than my favorite Castell, but it works the same. Got my signature there in the corner. Thanks guys for watching today. Really appreciate you. I hope you've learned something, and I hope you're inspired to try this yourself. If you did, be sure to share it with me in our Facebook group, and I will see you next time. Thanks again.